Inside my head or inside my brain is that part of me which keeps me sane, which helps discern between right and wrong and other things I'm gonna talk about in this song. It's time for the people to know.
Welcome to the Mental Weight Room, where we train the most important muscle in the body, your brain. Today, we're diving into the mindset behind purpose-driven success with Anderson Salgado. Anderson is an entrepreneur committed to building ventures that align with his core values and beliefs. As CEO of Trisbel, founder of Dall'Italia, and co-founder of American Christian Capital, Anderson is proof that the athletic mindset is not just for athletes, and that mental toughness and purpose fuel peak performance in the boardroom as well as on the field. He's also a Marine Corps veteran, former Amazon executive, and the host of not one, but two podcasts, Faith, Frontlines, and Fortune, and the Cap Chatfield Show. And that podcast reaches over 1.3 million subscribers. So if you're not listening or subscribing, you better get on the bandwagon. Anderson, first of all, thank you for your service to our great nation, and welcome to the Mental Weight Room.
Thank you so much.
All right, well, let's jump right in. To start, can you give my listeners a quick overview of who you are, what you do in your different businesses, and how you got where you are?
So as you previously mentioned, I served in the Marine Corps for 12 years. I enlisted in the Marine Corps when I was 19, and I dropped out of college to serve. And one of the things that I really wanted to do was serve the country that hosted me when I was a young man. I came to the U.S. when I was 15, and the Marine Corps was the best avenue for me to do that, right? I think the Marine Corps or any military service is a great starting point, but I was blessed to be able to do that. And as I left the Marine Corps, I got a master's degree from University of Miami in business and economics. And I was once again fortunate to get recruited by Amazon, where I jumped into a leadership development program. I think my entrepreneurial journey started way before I got into Amazon, but I always say that entrepreneurs either land in entrepreneurship, and those who say, I've been an entrepreneur my whole life. Yeah, but there is one factor that kind of seals the deal. And for me, I helped a brand exit for $400 million while I was at Amazon. It was a high-end luxury hair care brand. They wanted to exit for $250 million. They ended up exiting for $400 million. And I thought that was my way out. I was kind of tired of working the 60 to 80 hours a week. And I was convinced that this brand will send me a letter and tell me, Anderson, come and join our teams. Let's do that again. And you'll have a hefty salary and a hefty compensation package and everything that you ever dreamed of. And instead, they sent me a box of chocolates and a bottle of champagne and a note that said, thank you for all you've done. Very much like Thanos, for those of you nerds out there that love the Marvel movies. I snapped my fingers and I said to myself, okay, I'll do it myself. I left Amazon from my agency of one at the beginning, as you probably know, and then grew my team. Then I started getting into other things that the agency kind of led to, including both the podcast and funding businesses and my Italian venture as well. But it all started with me being essentially pushed into entrepreneurship and me having the one crazy thought of committing to it and that grit that I needed to say,
Right.
I don't know what it's gonna look like, but I'm gonna jump in.
Yeah. You've built and led multiple successful ventures. And I love that the push was actually a setback because you had this vision of this desired outcome, which you expected to have happen from this brand. And sadly, or not so sadly, because look what happened because of it, but you faced a setback. You know, some people would look at that as failure, but you took that setback and said, okay, I'll show you. And that fueled your spirit even more. So your career spans leadership roles in the military, in business, in media. How would you say these different experiences have shaped your overall mindset and then also the way you approach when you face challenges?
One of the things is I treat different portions of my life as a new chapter for a overall book. So in the book of Anderson Salgado, I'm seeing the Marine Corps as one chapter that enabled me to have discipline and decisiveness under pressure and the mindset of no man left behind and understanding really what being with other excellent men and women looks like in a cohesive teamwork. And then as I moved the page, Amazon was more driven on data and understanding data and how to scale and manage complexities and operate at a high level of precision. So one was more discipline oriented and teamwork and being under pressure and understanding that physical abilities are needed. And the other one was more precise and more intellectual on data driven and working with individuals that are not necessarily team players, but they are really savvy in what they do. And then as I move forward in the agency and the media category, I'm having communication with my guest or even with my staff, empowering myself with empathy and learning how to listen. So every single one of those chapters is important, but they all serve my life and have led me where I am.
Yeah. I love the metaphor of the book and different chapters because it's really a great metaphor for growth mindset. Whether it is a success or a failure or a setback or adversity, every single experience we have provides us with the opportunity to learn something. So your life is not just a book, it's a textbook. It's a it's a school book because you're learning at
Well,
every
it's
step
still
of the
being
way.
written. That's the
Yeah.
beauty. That's a beautiful thing about each one of our lives, right? That the book hasn't ended. And for me, it doesn't even end here. It's eternal.
So I want to pivot a little bit and talk about branding because that's a big part of what you do with Trisbell and how you help entrepreneurs. In your experience, what are some of the key elements of building a strong personal brand?
I love multiples of threes. Anything that we learn or make decisions on, it's easier when you have some foundation established with multiples of threes. So I build a personal branding blueprint of three different elements. The first element is authenticity. So people can really relate to you when you're being authentic. And if you build in a brand, authenticity is key. If you're trying to be something or someone you're not, or trying to duplicate somebody else's effort, it comes really transparent when your audience can sniff out the fluff, right?
Mhm.
For me, authenticity is key because it's really rooted on who you are, and it gives you that sense of belonging. That it doesn't matter where you shift left and right, at least you're still being yourself and you're not trying to pretend you're somebody else. And in the terms
Mhm.
of branding for products, it's key as well because now you're serving your audience in an authentic way. The second element revolves around clarity. If your audience or people who are buying your product understand what the product does or what you do as a service, and there's clarity behind that brand, then it's a lot easier for them to understand what the product or the service does. And it's also an easy way for you to serve them accurately and transparently. And the third is consistency. Whether you're a service provider or you're a product supplier, if you do the same thing over and over again, you become really good at it. You probably have heard the story of the college students that were split into two different groups, and the professor gave them a task. One group was to make as many pots as possible and provide the best one. And then the other group was to create the best pot possible by creating the best process. And the group that did the most pots also had the best quality and the best made pod because they did so many of them. So even though their incentive was to create as many as possible, their consistency in the creation of this pod also gravitated towards quality. So whether it is you're doing content or you're doing speaking engagements or you are trying to build a product, the more you do of something, the better you become at it.
Right. So, on the heels of that, what would you say are some of the most common mistakes that you see people make when trying to establish their brand presence?
Well, it's happening to me right now that you're trying to do too many things simultaneously, and then you become
Mm.
diluted. And your presence also becomes diluted, and your building of value becomes diluted. So anything that gives the appearance of being diluted is because oftentimes you're doing too many things. So that's one of the biggest mistakes that I see people trying to establish their brand, whether it is a personal brand or somebody else's brand, is that they've got so many things going on that they're so diluted in the process and they're out of focus.
People might get the impression that you just have the Midas touch. You're highly successful in everything you do, but I've had the pleasure of having multiple conversations with you and I've gotten to know you. And I know that your success has come with a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, a lot of hard work. I know success is not just about strategy, but it is about mindset. So I want to know, how has mental strength played a role in your entrepreneurial journey?
For every success story you see out there, there is 100 failures. If you see a little toddler and they're trying to walk, you see them stumbling 3, 4, 5 times. You don't see those as failures, you see those as investments. But to answer your question more effectively, I'm gonna use Robert Heath. I had a conversation with him today, as a matter of fact, and I mentioned a couple times the word failure, and he said, I want to challenge you to change your narrative around failure and see it more as an investment. So anytime that you see failure or challenge, or when you have a trade-off, like a sacrifice, don't see it as a sacrifice, see it as a moment of expansion, moment of growth, and more importantly, a moment where you're investing. But then remain consistent, remain authentic and clear. Highly successful people have that grit, right? And they fail and they just go like, yeah, I know we failed, but we got to go back at it. Or let's make a little shift and continue on. That level of consistency and that mindset for me has been a game changer. And the sky's the limit once you have the mindset.
Yeah. It sounds a lot like James Clear's theory on atomic habits. You just keep showing up and you just keep doing it day in, day out, every day. And those little things that you do every single day, in spite of the setbacks, that's how you end up having big breakthroughs. There's such a parallel between how you're describing your approach to developing your businesses, to overcoming adversity or facing setbacks, and what athletes have to do. It's easy for us to look at Simone Biles, who is the GOAT in gymnastics, or LeBron James, or any number of athletes who are highly successful. But what we don't see is the hours and hours and hours that they put in the gym, training their bodies and their minds. And I love that you say for every success that you see, there's 100 failures. I love that. But we all face setbacks, and you're not Superman. I know you like the Marvel heroes, but we all have self-doubt and we all have difficult moments and things that don't go as planned, no matter how much grit we have. And so I'm curious, what specific mental skills or what habits or what do you pull from to stay motivated during those times of self-doubt or the really difficult moments when you just want to go back to bed?
Well, I always see myself as, and it's going to upset some people, but my strategy is I'm seeing myself as a player for his game, and his with the
Mm,
capital H.
okay.
So I'm just a little pawn being brought to earth to do something of meaning and purpose for not my glory but his. And that switch has lifted a huge burden from my shoulders. And the strategy has been very simple. I'm third. So God is first, my family and my loved ones are second, and I'm third. And that mindset has completely changed the game because now I'm not doing things for my own glory. I'm doing things for His glory. And I'm not working for myself. I'm working for my wife and my kids. And I'm not trying to build businesses for me, but I'm trying to build businesses for him, my family, and my staff. So it changes the dynamic. The pressure
Right.
is off, but I'm still motivated, right? The problem for me, as you probably know from athletes, is sometimes you burn out and you have this level of exhaustion. And then you go into this arena where you're saying, I'm just tired. I don't know if I want to do this anymore. But then I've been grounded in this faith and belief that keeps me moving forward.
Yeah. And there's a real undertone of gratitude. And as we know, gratitude is a huge part of cultivating a growth mindset. Anderson, we are closing in on time, but before I forget, where can people connect and learn more about what you do and reach out and find you?
Trisbell.com, it's a combination of Tristan and Bella. So Trisbell, TRISBELL.com. We're doing certain things for people that I think nobody else in the industry is doing. We did start with Amazon optimization and growing brands and branding. And then we realized that brands, just like people, need a higher level of representation because leaders of a particular brand or a product are very interconnected to the brand itself. So we do improvements in the brand, but now we're also expanding into people growth from a brand perspective. And one of the things that I'm willing to do for any of the listeners is I want to do a couple of free sessions with individuals that are very interested in improving themselves in a way that is impactful. And I'll ask that question to any of your listeners right now. What does impact look for you? What does some legacy look for you? And it's going to differ from person to person. But oftentimes we get the same answer, which is I want to be a better version, or I want to have more visibility, or I want to be better in promoting my brand or promoting my products. And all of those are interconnected. And that's what we're focusing within our agency to help brand and entrepreneurs to get the understanding and foundation they need to be a better version of not only their brands, but themselves.
Well, how can people listening who are interested claim that generous offer of a couple of sessions with you?
Yeah, just go into trisbell.com, go into book a call, and it'll go straight into my inbox. Just put on the comments the mental weight room, and we'll be able to get you a couple of sessions at no cost. And we're happy to do that for any of your listeners.
Thank you so much. And now to wrap things up, if you could give one piece of advice to someone looking to achieve success as an athlete or in school or in business, what would it be?
Get really good at one thing. I hear people saying all the time, diversify. I like to think the opposite. Yes, you want to be a generalist later on, but at first you need to be a specialist. So if you're an athlete and you're playing baseball and you're a great pitcher and you have a great curve, well, guess what? Do that 1,000 times. See how you can get really good at that one thing. And once you have that 99.9% efficiency in that one thing, then you practice the next one. Bruce Lee said it best. I'd rather be the guy that has thrown the same kick 1,000 times than the guy that has thrown 1,000 kicks one time. And that level of specialization is what differentiates the experts from the novice.
Well, Anderson, this conversation has been packed with lots of insights on branding, on mindset, on the habits that drive success. But what really stands out is how mental skills, the ones we cultivate in sports, like discipline, resilience, focus, they're not just for athletes. They're investments in life beyond the game. And so, whether you're building a business, leading a team, or stepping into a new challenge, the mental work you put in now pays off long after your athletic career ends. Thank you again for your service and for sharing your journey with us today.
It's been an honor. Thank you so much. And thank you to your audience for listening.
And to everyone listening, this is Coach Antoinette signing off. And as always, keep training your mind like you trained your body and keep pushing your limits.